Ezekiel's valley of dry bones, though, is not a foreshadowing or prophecy of the return of the Jews to Palestine and the formation of modern Israel in 1948. Not prophesying that. For one thing, then, 1948, and now, Israel does not control all the land of Palestine. And you know that because of the news. These are the flashpoints: the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, the Golan Heights. Israel does not have a temple in Jerusalem. The most impressive temple, if you can call it that, in Jerusalem is the Dome of the Rock, the Muslims. Israel does not have the Holy Spirit. Ezekiel 37, 1 through 14 prophesies that God will put His Holy Spirit in you and make you live as unto God. Now, that's not what they do at all. They are pagan. Those who are not are Pharisees, and worse than Pharisees. On the Sabbath day they're in the beach. They're up to all sorts of wicked tricks like everybody else in this totally depraved world. And the Christian church there is marginalized and hated, especially if you're a Messianic Jew. If you're a Christian who is also of ethnic Jewish stock. And for sure, they don't have Christ and David ruling over them. David being a type of Christ. And not only does Ezekiel's valley of the dry bones not foreshadow or prophesy the formation of modern Israel in 1948, but it does not also foreshadow or prophesy a literal 1,000-year Jewish millennium. And Ezekiel 37 doesn't prophesy a literal 1,000-year Jewish millennium for the simple reason that there isn't going to be any literal 1,000-year Jewish millennium. That's not what Revelation 20 teaches, and it's not what the prophets looked forward to. The prophets prophesied Christ and the New Testament age, and the new heavens and the new earth. No other period. Let's now apply this vision. Apply is different from fulfillment. Let's apply it. Ezekiel 37, 1 through 14 gives us a particularly graphic picture of the total depravity of fallen man. Not only Israel, but the whole world consists of very dry bones. Spiritually, the world is dead. Death has worked through. Death reigns. Not just dead bodies, but very dry bones. That's the human race. None of this nonsense about man being glorious and the achievements of humanity and aren't we wonderful and all that. Dry bones. Man has no life spiritually. To believe in Jesus Christ, to cooperate in His salvation, to reach out for God, because there is none that seeketh after God. No, not one. Man's total depravity is such that he loves darkness rather than light because his deeds are evil, and he will not come to the light lest he is reproved. The biblical truth of total depravity has for its necessary foil, and it requires the other biblical truth of regeneration. When man is totally depraved, as he is, you don't come with schemes of moral improvement for man or educate him and think that then he will be good. And if only we can improve our schools and have people reading and just teach people, we will have a good and virtuous society. No, you won't. You don't need education to make people good. You need regeneration. That's the only way. And Ezekiel 37 makes it particularly clear that regeneration is all of God's power. All of it. These very dry bones could do nothing to give themselves life. It must be divine power alone. And that's exactly the way it was with the regeneration of us, totally depraved sinners. We didn't have any power. And even if we would have had any power, to speak as a fool for a minute, we wouldn't have wanted to exercise it for the sake of Christ and His kingdom. Which brings us to the second point. Not only is regeneration all of God's power, but it is an entirely sovereign work. These very dry bones did not say, "Lord, give me life. I would like to live again. Why don't you regenerate me?" They didn't say that. They couldn't say that. And man can't say that either. This passage talks about the wind, the breath, the Spirit of the Lord. Wind, breath and Spirit are the same words in Hebrew and in English. The Holy Spirit is the divine breath who blows upon us. That's the idea. And the wind blows whithersoever it listeth, wherever it wants. You can hear the sound of it and you can see it rustle the trees, but you don't know where it's coming from or where it's going. And so is everyone who's born of the Spirit. He blows sovereignly, regenerates this one or that, but not the other one. Regeneration, all of God's power, and according to His will. But moving now from the application as regards man's total depravity and then regeneration, this is something important to say to us about the professing, visible church. Because that's the presentation Ezekiel 37 as regards Israel. Bones, dry bones, very dry bones. That's the way it is here with much of the professing and visible church in Northern Ireland. This is where it is. This is the way it is when we do some mission work in Limerick or Italy or Wales or wherever you go. Bones, very dry bones. Because the professing church, most of it, is weak, apostate and dead. Because there has been a working through now of some 500 years of apostasy since the Reformation. There are parts where you can say it is especially dry, the bones. You go to Germany, you go to much of Switzerland, you go to parts of Eastern Europe, or Italy, or Spain. Boy, it's just dry. It's as dry as the dust of the ground underneath. And God is able. That's the lesson of Ezekiel 37. God is able. He has the power, most definitely, according to His sovereign will, to quicken, to restore, and to reform, to build the church. He is always able. The question is about His will. Does He purpose it? Does He want it? And the restoration of His church here is presented in terms of granting life to the dead, so that which is quickened lives unto God, has beating, throbbing in its heart the power and life of the Holy Spirit, so that it loves Jesus Christ, serves the kingdom, puts to death the lusts of the flesh, glorifies God.